Here's a coherent and concise paragraph based on your input. Priscilla, first of all, how are you? I'm okay, thank you. It's been an extraordinary few years, with some great highs and terrible lows. I've interviewed you over the last 15 years, and I genuinely wondered how you were doing. In all honesty, it's been tough. I've lost my mom, my grandson, and my daughter. Some days are good, others are hard. It's difficult to wake up and not hear from my daughter or wonder how my grandson is doing. It feels like a large part of my life has been taken away. The challenge for someone like me is that grief isn't private. Everything is magnified on a global stage. Baz Luhrmann once said the Presleys and the Kennedys are like American royalty, wedded to calamity, with the world watching their every move. That resonates with me. Being married to Elvis, I didn't know what I was stepping into, especially at a young age. Losing privacy and facing scrutiny became part of my life. Now, with Priscilla, a movie about my life, it's surreal. At the Venice Film Festival, it received a 7-minute standing ovation, which brought me to tears. I was thrilled for Sofia Coppola, who directed it, as we were both nervous about how it would be received. The movie captures not just my life, but my relationship with Elvis. Sofia did her homework. We spoke at length about it. Living with someone so famous wasn't just glamorous. I experienced his ups, downs, struggles, and fears during crucial moments in his life. While I've shared parts of that journey, I've always valued privacy, for him and myself. From the very beginning, even when I was young and in school, I respected and protected his privacy, which I know meant a lot to him. Here's a cohesive paragraph based on the lines you provided. When I first started dating Elvis, I valued and safeguarded his privacy. He would call my parents to ask if I could visit him on weekends, and during those visits, I got to know him. Yet, I often wondered, why me? Why does he trust me? Over time, I realized it was because I was a listener, someone he could confide in and trust deeply. I never told anyone at school that I was seeing him because I honored that trust. He would share his emotions with me, like his struggles with his father after losing his mother. He was heartbroken when his father began dating so soon after her death, and he poured his heart out to me. That trust was everything to him, and to this day, there are things he shared that I hold close and will never reveal. Even after our divorce, I've never spoken badly about Elvis. Supporting him, even decades after his death, has always mattered to me because he was an extraordinary human being. He never expected to achieve such fame. He simply loved music and entertaining people. But as his career skyrocketed, he often felt a sense of responsibility, wondering if he was meant for something more. I remember him reading the Bible late at night, reflecting on whether he had a greater purpose or message to share. One of the more contentious points about our relationship, especially as depicted in the movie Priscilla, is the age difference when we met. I was 14, and he was 24. Some see this as grooming, particularly in the context of today's standards. But it was a different time, the early 1960s, when women, like my mother, often dressed up daily for their husbands and maintained a traditional sense of care for themselves and their families. I didn't see it as grooming. Elvis wanted me to feel confident and presentable. I didn't have money for nice clothes, so he'd take me shopping or to the movies, ensuring I looked and felt my best. He wanted me to feel comfortable in a world that was so new and unfamiliar to me. Certainly. Here's a more expanded version of the paragraph with additional details for depth. Elvis was meticulous about appearances, always dressing impeccably, and he wanted those around him to reflect that same standard. He encouraged me to dress elegantly, not out of control, but as an expression of care and respect for the environments we found ourselves in. At the time, this seemed natural, but with today's mindset, some might view our relationship as inappropriate because I was only 14 when we met. I completely understand those concerns. However, our relationship was grounded in trust and companionship. When we first met in Germany, where my father was stationed in the military, we were always surrounded by people. While our conversations were private, Elvis was never inappropriate, aggressive, or pushy. He was someone who sought solace in me, someone he trusted deeply. In fact, we didn't consummate our relationship until our wedding night, years later, when I was 21. That night was also when Lisa Marie was conceived. Although some might find this hard to believe, it is the absolute truth, and I've always been open about it. Elvis faced immense pressures as the biggest superstar in the world, and this profoundly influenced his behavior and decisions. He carried the weight of enormous expectations, which created unique challenges. One significant source of frustration for him was his movie career. He dreamed of acting in serious roles, but his contracts, managed by Colonel Parker, often limited him to light-hearted musicals like Girls, Girls, and Blue Hawaii. Elvis felt these films diminished his potential and turned him into a caricature. He once expressed to me how hurtful it was to feel like a joke when he wanted so much more artistically. Colonel Parker, though instrumental in Elvis's rise to fame, didn't always understand or respect his artistic ambitions. The portrayal of Parker in the recent biopic captures some of this tension, though my own experiences with the Colonel were more neutral. I remember accompanying Elvis to visit Parker in Palm Springs, where Elvis would talk business, and I'd be left to socialize with Parker's wife, feeling a bit out of place. Their relationship was complicated. Elvis respected Parker's business savvy, but often resented how his decisions interfered with creative freedom, particularly when it came to music or film choices. Despite his struggles, Elvis never stopped being kind and loving toward those close to him. Some might describe him as emotionally distant or controlling, but I never saw him that way. He cared deeply for his family and always made decisions he thought were best for us. For example, when he performed in Las Vegas, he wanted me to visit on weekends but preferred that Lisa Marie stay home. He loved children, especially Lisa, but he didn't believe Vegas was an appropriate environment for her. I agreed, as the shows were loud, intense, and filled with distractions that weren't suitable for a child. He wanted to maintain focus on his work while also ensuring Lisa had stability at home, and I respected that balance. My first visit to Graceland remains one of the most surreal moments of my life. It was June 1963, and Elvis wanted the experience to be special. As we approached the gates, he asked me to close my eyes, building anticipation. He had told me so much about Graceland, describing its beauty and significance to him, and he was eager to share it with me. When I opened my eyes, I was overwhelmed by the grandeur of the estate, a world so different from my normal teenage life. Graceland was more than a home. It was a symbol of Elvis's success and his refuge from the pressures of fame. For me, stepping into that world was like stepping into a dream. It marked the beginning of my immersion into his extraordinary life, one filled with glamour, challenges, and a deep sense of shared trust and connection. Graceland was Elvis's sanctuary, the first home he ever purchased, and he took immense pride in it. On my first visit, he made it a special moment for me. As we approached, he asked me to close my eyes, and when the iconic gates opened, the sight was breathtaking. The lights illuminated the grandeur of the estate, far exceeding anything I had imagined. Elvis was so proud to share Graceland, not just with me, but with everyone he cared about, giving personal tours of the house and the grounds. It was a magical place filled with beauty and meaning, a reflection of his success and his deep connection to home. However, living at Graceland wasn't always glamorous. The movie captures the duality of my life there. On one hand, being married to Elvis Presley, a global icon, but on the other, experiencing a life that could often feel repetitive and lonely. When Elvis was away filming, I spent long periods waiting for him to return. He would call me at 5 p.m. every evening without fail, and I'd sit by the phone anticipating his voice. Yet, despite those moments of connection, there was an underlying sense of isolation. I didn't have many friends and often relied on the company of his family or staff, like his double first cousin Patsy, who worked in the office. We'd go bowling or to the movies, and I'd spend time with Grandma Presley, talking for hours or watching television together. Even in Graceland, where I was surrounded by so much, life felt quiet when Elvis wasn't there. I was often reminded that I was a guest in his world. Once, Vernon, Elvis's father, put up a sign in the office to discourage anyone not working there from lingering, which added to the sense of being an outsider. For all its glamour, my life at Graceland was a waiting game, and the excitement only truly began when Elvis came home. When he did return, everything changed. His charisma was electric. He could walk into a room, and the energy would skyrocket. He wasn't even fully aware of his impact. His presence was just naturally commanding. Occasionally, He'd joke in front of the mirror, saying, "Damn, I'm good looking," with his characteristic humor. He loved gathering with friends late at night around the dining table, where I was often the only woman, and we'd laugh, share stories, and enjoy his infectious energy. He'd eat dinner late, around 9:30 p.m., and we'd watch Johnny Carson before heading out to a theater he'd rented for a private movie screening. Life was vibrant, fun, and full of adventure when he was around. Elvis was also immensely proud of my accomplishments, including my karate training. He introduced me to martial arts, and it became something we shared. He'd sometimes ask me to demonstrate my moves in front of friends, even in less than ideal moments. I remember one occasion in Las Vegas when Raquel Welch visited his dressing room. Despite being dressed up, Elvis encouraged me to perform a karate kick for her, showing off my skills. He was so proud of my dedication and progress, and though it was a bit embarrassing at the time, I look back on those moments fondly. Even after we divorced, Elvis and I remained close, united by our love for our daughter, Lisa Marie. She was the heart of our connection and a testament to the bond we shared, despite the complexities of our life together. Elvis and I shared a daughter, Lisa Marie, his only child, and even after our divorce, I prioritized their bond. Elvis adored her, and I made it a point to ensure they had time together. For holidays like Christmas or Easter, I would arrange for Lisa to spend time with him at Graceland. Even in Las Vegas, I ensured she visited, often accompanied by her nanny. Despite the challenges Elvis faced, he was as good a father as he knew how to be. He wasn't naturally attuned to children, largely because he hadn't been around them much growing up, so he struggled to understand what to do when she was little. However, as Lisa grew older and could travel to spend extended periods with him, their relationship deepened. His sudden death was devastating, not just for the world, but for Lisa and me personally. I had spoken to him 2 nights before and would never have imagined the tragedy to come. When I received the call from Joe Esposito, I thought he was joking. It was unfathomable. Once I realized it was true, I broke down, retreating to my room in disbelief and overwhelming grief. Elvis was still so young, with so much left to do. The hardest part was thinking about Lisa and how I would tell her. Lisa was only 9 at the time, and I didn't know how to explain such a profound loss. I told her we were going to Graceland to see her daddy, but that he would be resting. She asked what I meant, and I explained he would be asleep for a while. She wanted to see him, and I reassured her she could. When she did, I don't think she fully understood. Instead, she spent time driving around Graceland in a golf cart with a friend, as though life were still normal. It wasn't until later that the reality began to sink in. To protect her from the media frenzy, I took her to Europe with my sister for 2 weeks. The paparazzi had surrounded my home, and I wanted to shield her from the intrusive headlines and images. Even at airports, where tabloids were being sold, I made every effort to keep her away from the papers. I kept her out of school temporarily and asked her teachers not to mention anything, fearing that classmates might overwhelm her with questions or comments. This wasn't just a public tragedy. It was real life, losing the man I had loved and still loved deeply, even after our separation. Elvis was unique, with a magnetic personality and a caring heart. He often questioned why he had been chosen for such immense fame, but his genuine compassion for people made him stand out. Even today, the memory of him is vivid, and the love we shared remains a part of me. Elvis had a generous heart, and one story that illustrates this is from a day he was driving around Beale Street. He noticed a woman admiring cars in a dealership window and asked his driver to stop. Stepping out, he struck up a conversation with her, asking which car she liked. She pointed to a blue one, and he agreed it was a fine choice. Without hesitation, Elvis took her inside, spoke with the salesman, and bought her the car, a brand new blue Cadillac. Moments like this defined him. He was a giver, helping anyone in need. Whether it was covering medical expenses for friends or offering financial aid to those in trouble, his generosity knew no bounds. Reflecting on these memories, especially after watching Elvis, the movie brings a mix of emotions. It often makes me wonder if there was anything I could have done differently, but deep down, I believe I gave my all to him. Elvis was strong-minded and determined in his ways. He found joy in giving but never cared much for receiving gifts. Our relationship endured even after our marriage ended. He continued to call me frequently, often from secluded spots like his bathroom or office to avoid anyone overhearing. My last conversation with him was about Lisa Marie. She was visiting him, and I reminded him she needed to return home because school was starting. It was an ordinary, caring exchange, and I couldn't have imagined it would be the last time we spoke. His passing in 1977 was devastating. Even now, all these years later, I miss him deeply. His words, his laughter, his energy, and the countless fun moments we shared. It's only when looking back at old photos and memories that I truly appreciate the joy we had together. There's one song that always brings him to mind, Memories. I rarely listen to it because it transports me to another place, stirring emotions that are still so raw. Sometimes I'm surprised by how deeply I still feel for him, how much love remains even now. Elvis is still so present, not just to me but to the world. His legacy is unmatched, especially in places like Las Vegas, where his impact is indelible. Walking into those showrooms and remembering his performances, you realize there will never be another like him. Many have tried to emulate him, but Elvis was singular, a legend in every sense. His presence, his charisma, and his love are things I carry with me, always. Since Elvis's death, there has been much discussion about his moments of anger, particularly those directed at Colonel Parker. In the movie, there's a scene where Elvis throws a chair in frustration. It's true that he did have moments like that, especially with Colonel Parker, because he felt deeply deceived by him. Elvis believed the Colonel was working against his interests, often making decisions that conflicted with what Elvis wanted or believed was best. Despite these frustrations, the Colonel would maintain personal relationships with people involved in Elvis's work, like album producers or sound engineers, which added to Elvis's sense of betrayal. Elvis's temper was rare but justified when it appeared. He was passionate and knew what he wanted, guided by instincts that were often right. Some may have walked away from such moments labeling him as volatile, but that wasn't the case. He was human, full of emotions and feelings. These rare flashes of anger were a natural response to situations where he felt wronged or misunderstood. When I'm out and about, people are generally very kind. They often recognize me, which still surprises me. Sometimes they even applaud, a gesture that leaves me humbled and amazed. It's a reflection of how much Elvis's legacy endures. While I don't see myself as American royalty, being connected to someone so famous often brings that perception. I'm fortunate to have experienced such warmth from people throughout my life. There's a tragic irony in the fact that Lisa Marie passed away so soon after we attended the Golden Globes together, celebrating Elvis. That night, we were thrilled for Austin Butler and Baz Luhrmann, proud of how the movie turned out. After the ceremony, Lisa suggested we go to Chateau Marmont for a drink. Although she seemed happy, I noticed she wasn't looking well. She appeared frail and mentioned stomach pains. At Chateau Marmont, we laughed and enjoyed each other's company, but her discomfort grew, and she told me she had to leave because of the pain. We hugged before parting ways, and that hug turned out to be our last. The next day, her ex-husband Danny called, telling me Lisa was in the hospital. Even then, I didn't think it would be the last time. By the time I got there, it was too late. Losing Lisa is still shocking. She was my daughter, my connection to Elvis, and an extraordinary person in her own right. The pain of her loss, compounded by the memories of that last night, remains profound and hard to comprehend. Losing a child is often described as the worst pain imaginable, and for me, it has been unbearable. I've experienced profound losses: my mother, my grandson Ben, and my daughter Lisa Marie. Losing Ben was especially devastating for Lisa. He was the love of her life, and she adored him. His decision to take his own life broke her. I remember sitting with her in Memphis, where she confided that she didn't know if she wanted to go on living. She was grieving so deeply that she felt hopeless. Just a couple of months before her death, she expressed feelings of despair, though she tried to stay strong for her twins, who were still very young at the time. Talking about these losses is incredibly difficult, but the pain is real and lingering. It's a testament to how deeply we were connected as a family and how much these losses have shaped me. Lisa's brief marriage to Michael Jackson also brought its share of concern. As a mother, I was honest with her about my reservations. I felt that Michael's interest in her might have been tied to his fascination with Elvis and the Presley name. While she was married to him, She confided that he was often absent, and she never knew where he went. This worried me. I also sensed he was wary of me, which Lisa confirmed. He avoided interactions with me, even to the extent of hiding when I visited. I think he was intelligent enough to know that I saw through him. Though I respected Michael as a talented individual, I questioned his motivations for being with Lisa. Eventually, Lisa decided to end the marriage, which was a relief to me. I wanted her to have relationships based on genuine love and respect, not driven by fame or legacy. After Lisa's passing, there was speculation about tension between me and her daughter Riley. It was a challenging time for everyone, compounded by the complexity of handling a family legacy like ours. Riley later addressed this, explaining that after Lisa's death, there was chaos as we tried to navigate both personal grief and the responsibilities tied to Graceland and the Presley estate. However, Riley clarified that there was never real conflict between us. In a Vanity Fair interview, she described me as a beautiful woman who has devoted her life to preserving Elvis's legacy and protecting the Presley family. Her words moved me deeply, especially when she said I've always been her grandma above all else. Reading Riley's reflections brought tears to my eyes. It reminded me how much love and understanding remain within our family, despite external pressures and misconceptions. I'm incredibly proud of her and grateful for the bond we share, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Riley and I have always been close, and the situation surrounding Lisa Marie's will was, at its core, quite straightforward. Lisa had updated her will, naming her children as executors, which is entirely understandable. However, she hadn't informed me, so when her tragic and unexpected death brought this to light, it caught me completely off guard. That was all there was to it. Despite the initial confusion, I have full confidence in Riley. She's incredibly talented and has already sought my guidance on managing Graceland. While she has her own thriving career, I'm always here to help her, particularly with understanding the history and legacy of Elvis. She wasn't heavily involved with Graceland in the past, only visiting for special occasions like Christmas, but I want her to know more about her grandfather and his remarkable legacy. There has also been speculation in the press about my wish to be buried at Graceland. To clarify, it is something I deeply want, to be laid to rest beside Elvis and Lisa Marie. Riley has publicly expressed her support for this, and it brings me comfort knowing that it will happen when the time comes, though hopefully far in the future. Riley has a strong head on her shoulders and is capable of managing the responsibilities that come with Graceland. We've had many conversations, and I trust her completely. Her maturity and dedication assure me that she will continue to honor the family's legacy. Looking back, I'm proud of what I've accomplished with Graceland. When I first took over, it was on the verge of financial collapse, and I was told we might have to sell it. That idea was unacceptable to me. Determined to preserve Elvis's legacy, I rolled up my sleeves and sought advice from experts and friends. I connected with influential figures like Peter Uberroth and eventually found the right help through Morgan Maxfield. It wasn't easy, but I worked tirelessly to transform Graceland into a thriving business that now generates $100 million annually. Sometimes, even I wonder how I managed it all. But knowing that I safeguarded Elvis's home and legacy for future generations, while also creating a solid foundation for my family, fills me with immense pride. I hope Riley and the rest of my family continue to carry this torch with the same passion and dedication. We were still in touch when Morgan invited me to join him on his private plane. He was heading somewhere, but I wasn't able to go. Unfortunately, Morgan's plane crashed, and tragically, everyone on board, including Jack Sodden, who I had hired, died. Jack had accompanied us to Disneyland in Nashville, and I had made him the CEO of Graceland, knowing that he understood what I needed and what we had discussed. He wasn't initially keen on the position, but I knew he had the intelligence and capability to handle it. He's still there today, and Graceland has become a thriving business, all driven by someone who truly understands the spirit of Elvis. When I visit Graceland, I feel like I never left. I sit in the living room, surrounded by memories, and it's as though I can still hear Elvis's laughter. I can see him playing the piano after we'd returned from the movies, and we'd sit there, listening to him sing gospel music. Those memories are still vivid. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Riley spoke about Lisa developing a thick skin over the years. She mentioned how her mom faced constant pressure from people who wanted something from her, not out of authenticity. But she was a loving, loyal, and fierce woman, a lioness who was also an incredible mother. When I read that, it resonated with me deeply, as I feel the same could be said about me. It's a compliment, though it's not always easy living under constant scrutiny. Like Lisa, I've had to develop a thick skin to survive in this goldfish bowl, but I've chosen to be private. I keep my circle small, cherishing the family and friends I have left and living a quiet, normal life. As we near the end of this interview, I feel a little nervous, but also willing to share parts of my life I haven't discussed before. I've always admired your interviews, and I trust you. I hope everything comes across well, and that people understand that I've lived a remarkable life. I'm proud of the role I've played in preserving Elvis's legacy. The movie about my life will hopefully show the significance of not only my relationship with Elvis, but also the efforts I've made to keep his memory alive after his passing. I'm often asked about Elvis's character, and I can't stress enough what an incredible person he was. His heart was enormous, his sense of humor unmatched, and his love for others unshakable. Despite being an artist, he was also a little boy at times, loved to be cared for, and had an innocence about him. He would never have believed how many fans he still has today, and I don't think there will ever be anyone like him again. It has truly been a privilege to sit down with you and share these stories. Thank you for being so understanding and open with me.